I read 100 books in 1 year. And in this video, I'm going to be telling you how I did it and how you can too. When I usually tell people that I've read 100 books in 1 year, they usually look at me like I'm this extraterrestrial being from a different planet. How can you read 100 books in 1 year? How did you do it? How do you even have the time on your hands to read 100 books in 1 year? I can sort of understand where they're coming from because growing up, reading was always just a subconscious habit that I took on. I would read anything and everything. Anything I could get my hands on, I was reading it. And because we had such a huge library in my house growing up, it was easy for me to just pick up a book and read it. And I kind of understand that if this culture and habit wasn't embedded in you from a young age, that it's a bit harder for you to adopt it in your adult years. Because obviously, as you grow up, it gets harder to manage the art of reading. It gets harder to pick up a book and stick with it, especially with so many distractions, like going out, paying your rent, working, school. There's so many distractions that stop us from reading and achieving our reading goals each and every single year. But what if I told you that whether you're an avid reader or you don't read at all, that reading 100 books is much more attainable and achievable than you think? In this video, I've compiled a list of my tips that help me to read 100 books in 1 year. And hopefully, these tips can help you too. Before I decided to read 100 books in 1 year, I made a very long list of all the books that I've always wanted to read. These books consisted of nonfiction, fiction, all sorts of genres and writing styles. The only thing in common that all these books had is that I really wanted to read all of them. These were books that I'd read the blurbs, summaries, and wanted to really read. And also another tip, this list should serve as a guide. If perchance you start a book that's on your reading list, and then while you're reading the book and you're almost done with that book, you spot another book and you really want to read this book, but then it happens to not be on your reading list, do not fret and do not feel guilty. The purpose of this list is to lessen indecision. One of the reasons why a lot of people don't pick up a book or don't stick to their reading schedule each year is because of indecision. And this list only serves to lessen indecision, but also provides you with flexibility. When you spend forever picking a book and even longer picking a book after your book of choice, you're less likely to read anything at all. Make a list, make it smaller, and make it even more specific. What I do, I plan each month. So the month of January, I'll have like 5 books that I want to read in the month of January. And in the month of February, I'll have like 6 books that I want to read in the month of February. But the thing is that this list is sort of serves as a guide. So I don't necessarily have to read all the books that I wanted to read in January. I still have to stick to that commitment of reading 5 books in January. But if I'm not feeling a book in the list of January, I can pull a book in the list of March that I really like and just add it to the book of January and just switch it around. And that book that I wasn't really feeling in January, I'll just go ahead and read it in March. Another good tip is planning your books around seasons or weather. So for example, a book that has a summertime kind of feel, I'll maybe read it in the summer because it makes the book more realistic. Or a book that has a horror element, thriller elements, or a gloomy atmosphere, I would want to pick up that book on a rainy day or when it's cold and chilly outside, or when it's just gloomy. Planning out your book schedule like this not only makes the books more realistic, but it also makes you enjoy the book even more. When I do this, I just end up enjoying the book more because outside literally mimics the atmosphere of the book and it just makes the book more realistic. And I've seen this work for many people. When you choose your books around the summer, winter, different seasons, or you choose your books around holidays like Black History Month or Christmas, it just makes you more amped up to read the book because it really sets the setting. Yes, avid readers are not always on social media every single day. When I read 100 books in 1 year, I really wasn't an avid user of social media or really had a platform to really manage. But for people that do use social media to make a living, like influencers, or someone that just prioritizes their social media because that's their way of communicating with family, friends, then it is still possible for you to read 100 books in 1 year. You need to prioritize your time and prioritize it wisely. You need to replace certain habits or rituals with reading. For example, in the morning when you wake up, instead of going on social media and scrolling for 2 hours before you actually go ahead and start your day, Why don't you pick up that book that you've always wanted to read and maybe read 2 or 3 chapters before starting your day? I believe that everyone should read every single morning. You literally kickstart your brain. Reading is a mentally stimulating activity that forces and encourages a form of mental control and focus. When you start your day off reading, you're already exercising your mind to focus, and by doing so, you're taking control of your mind. So if distractions come your way throughout that day, it's much easier for you to manage it. In comparison to maybe scrolling on social media and your mind is being exposed to a whole variety of content at once, it's less easy for your mind to focus on one thing. When I read 100 books, instead of watching a video at night, I read. Instead of coming home and scrolling on TikTok or Instagram for countless hours, I read. It's hard, but being conscious of your goal all the time makes it a little easier. Reading 100 books comes with sacrificing some leisure things, but it is so worth it. One of the big things that has positively influenced my reading career and made it possible for me to reading 100 books in 1 year is joining the online reading community Goodreads. Goodreads is an online community that gives a platform to various readers across the globe where they can share their love and passion for reading. I have been a member of Goodreads for a decade, and it is one of the best decisions I have ever made for my reading career. Sometimes I wonder if I maybe would have fallen out of reading a long time ago if it wasn't for Goodreads. But again and again, it has always been such a source of motivation for me. Going online and seeing people write reviews, leave comments about their favorite books, not a lot of them are even getting paid to do this just because they love reading, is such a beautiful thing to witness. I strongly recommend joining the online reading community Goodreads, as it will definitely change your reading career and the way you read and manage books. Take a book with you everywhere, whether it's a book via Kindle format or a book on your phone or an actual physical book. Take a book with you everywhere because 9 times out of 10, when you go outside, you're either going to be waiting on something or waiting on someone. So for example, you can be in the doctor's office right now, and before they call you, you might just go on your phone and start scrolling on Instagram or texting or playing a game on your phone. When if you actually brought a book and you're somebody that gets easily distracted by your phone, then actually bring a physical book or buy the book that you wanted to read. So you bring this physical book in this doctor's office, and instead of actually bringing out your phone, just bring out your book and read it. When you do this and you make it a constant habit wherever you go to always have a book on you, you're going to find out that there are lots of moments throughout the day, various opportunities where you can pick up a book and read. When people want to eat healthy, do they surround themselves with junk food? No. People who want to be healthy surround themselves with the right sort of food. And that should be the exact same principle for somebody that wants to take reading seriously. If you want to read 100 books in a year, you have to be constantly reminded that there are books, that books exist, that there are physical books that you can actually read. And by doing this, maybe purchase a bookshelf and put it in your room and line it up with some books, old books, new books, any sort of books. Just line up the bookshelf with books. Or if you have a nightstand next to your bed, you can just go ahead and put a couple of books there. It will remind you. Like what I do, I actually have this little hamper. It's actually meant for pillows, but I use it as a nightstand. And I just put books inside that hamper. So anytime I walk into my room, I'm greeted by those books. Anytime I walk into my room, I look at the books that I'm supposed to read that month or I'm supposed to read that year. Consciously being reminded of books all the time is going to make you want to pick up a book. You're not going to be surrounded by something and then you're just like, whether it takes a month or it takes 2 weeks, takes 3 weeks, you're going to stand up and you're going to look at that bookshelf and you're going to be like, what books do I have at this bookshelf? And what book do I actually want to read this month? So surround yourself with books, especially if you're somebody that needs to be surrounded by something or needs to be in the presence of something to remember that thing exists. Surround yourself with books. It helps you pick up a book. what helped me greatly growing up and why I'm such an avid reader today and why it's so easy for me to get through a book is because I was constantly surrounded by books, annoyingly constantly surrounded by books. I had a huge bookshelf in my room growing up. My dad had a bookshelf in his room. My mom had a bookshelf in her room. My sisters had a bookshelf in their room. So there were books everywhere. And whether I liked it or not, I was going to read one of those books. And that encouraged me to read. You take in your environment, you take in your surroundings. So surround yourself with the things that you want to take in. And if it's books, surround yourself with books and you'll find yourself reading 100 books in no time. Reading 100 books actually isn't as impossible as you might think, especially if you start incorporating these tips. These tips work for reading 100 books in a year, 200 books. I have seen it happen. Even when I read 100 books in 1 year, it was actually a competition between my sister and I. And I was the avid reader. My sister had probably read 10 books between the age of 1 to 17. And she had never actually made reading plans, reading goals every single year. And I was the one that made reading plans and reading goals. She incorporated these tips that I'm sharing with you. And she actually read 100 books before I read 100 books that year. She probably even read like 102, I think. It is not impossible. I have seen it happen. You can do it, whether you're an avid reader, whether you're not somebody that reads at all but wants to make reading a habit, or you want to make reading a hobby. You can do it. It is possible. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up and tell me, how many books have you read in a year? What was the highest amount of books you've read in a year and how did you do it? Thank you guys so much for watching this video and please don't forget to subscribe. Bye now.